appreciate that. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. It's 2 minutes past 5. I will call the meeting to order for the Municipal Planning Commission for Wednesday, December the 15th, 2021. Prior to our adopting the agenda, I'm just going to go through a couple of things. I guess to put it mildly, there's been very few applications that have been as highly anticipated as this one for many members of our community, which is great. Always wonderful to see people involved. Given this input, though, I want you to understand a few things. I want everyone to be clear in the process that's involved in these meetings, which are undertaken as outlined in City Bylaw and the Municipal Government Act. This is not something that is necessarily a one of, and there's dates and times that have to be followed. So when I hear suggestions that things were not done in a timely fashion, I do verify them, but I find it hard to believe given that we are governed by the Alberta government to do so in a timely manner, and I have yet to find a time when we have not. In saying that, these operational outlines make the MPC meetings open to the public. However, they do not outline any methodology or requirement for the public to be heard at these meetings other than through written submission. Naturally, that it exempts the proponent who is usually invited to speak. Contrary to previous chairs, I do make allowance for interested parties to speak within reason, of course, and expect them to behave in a manner appropriate for a public meeting. So to be clear, as a chair, I have the authority to allow for additional submissions from the floor, and that this commission is tasked with making decisions based on input from a variety of sources and expected to make the best decision for our community as a whole. So in saying that, I would say that today we do not have an excess of members. However, we do have quorum. We have currently 4 members. Normally there are 5 on the commission. However, we had one person exit our community, and that position has yet to be filled, and we expect it will be early in the new year. So we do have 3 out of 5, 3 out of 4 that are currently serving, 3 out of 5 overall, still a quorum. And thank both you gentlemen for being here. Councillor Ross sends his regrets. He did undertake to try and be with us at this meeting. However, he is out of the country with some very unreliable Wi-Fi and was unable to connect properly to be of any value. So we had an opportunity to review the agenda. If so, I need a motion. Member Gullickson.
I'll move the agenda as presented.
Thank you very much. All those in favor? That is unanimous. Thank you. And we have also our minutes from December, from our December 1st rather meeting. We've had an opportunity to review those. Any errors or omissions? Would you care to make a motion?
Move it to accept as presented.
Thank you. Those were circulated, and I will call the question. All those in favor? That is unanimous as well. Thank you. One item that I did not outline is we do have several people viewing electronically. Thank you for joining. I'm not certain how many there are, but there's certainly some administration and some members of the public at large, and we will endeavor to allow those members or those individuals the opportunity to speak at the appropriate time as well. So before us this evening, we do have one item only, that being a permit application 4.1 for a daycare facility located at 5029 56A Street. Development Officer Chapel, could you take us through this item, please?
Absolutely. Thank you, Mayor Creasy. As we all know, we've received an application for a daycare facility to occupy an existing building located at 5029 56A Street. That's Lot 10, Block 40, Plan 4048 HW, and it's zoned R1, which is the residential detached district. A daycare facility is defined in the land use bylaw as a facility that provides care and supervision for 7 or more children for more than 3, but less than 24 consecutive hours in each day that the facility is operating, and is intended to be operated, at least 12 consecutive weeks per year. Daycare facility is a discretionary use in the R1 district and all of the residential districts in the Combs land use bylaw, with the exception of the RLI, or residential light industrial district, include that use. Neighboring property consultations were sent out to 21 adjacent landowners. There's 23 surrounding parcels. 7 opposition letters were received from neighboring landowners. 1 inquiry came in from a resident outside of the 60 meters. They did not end up submitting an opposition. 1 notification came in support of the application. Concerns were shared with the applicant, who prepared a response in an email dated December 9th, and 10 letters of support were submitted from various members of the community at the time of writing this report. These submissions are all included at the end of the report. The building, located at 5029 56A Street, was constructed as a church in 1976 and renovated into a commercial dance studio in 1986. In addition, was constructed in the 1990s, which increased the parking requirements to a total of 14. During the building's 35 years of operating as a dance studio, off-street parking has been limited to the grassed area on the south side of the building. For the proposed daycare facility, staff recommending attaching a condition of approval for the development of 7 parking spaces, including, excuse me, 1 wheelchair accessible space. Daycare facilities being discretionary use in the R1 residential detached district. They are a discretionary use in the R1 district. The purpose of the R1 district is to provide, you have to excuse me, I've got a scratchy throat this afternoon. The purpose of the R1 district is to provide an area for residential development in the form of detached dwellings and compatible uses. As a discretionary use, the permit may or may not be approved by the Municipal Planning Commission, depending on the compatibility with surrounding uses. Excuse me, I apologize. Scale of development and site development. Daycare facilities fall under the authority of the Early Learning and Child Care Act and the Safety Codes Act. The municipality would require proof of compliance with these acts and has the ability to limit hours of operation, number of parking spaces, and number of staff vehicles acceptable for the site. I wonder if you might be able to take over. I haven't really spoken much today, and this frog in my throat is making it impossible for me to read out loud. Oops.
I'll just have you turn off your microphone then, please.
I apologize, everyone.
No problem, thank you.
That's okay.
Manager Hackett, you go right ahead, thank you.
Okay, I'll jump in. So the proposed daycare has indicated that they would likely operate from 7 a.m. till 6:30 p.m. And align with the typical school calendar. So that would mean they might break at the summertime and close, for example, over the weekends or long weekends. The applicant has indicated that there would be no before or after school transportation, camps, or drop-in care. And families would be registered in the daycare program. The applicant has indicated that their licensing maximum would be 40 children, but anticipates that their actual numbers would be closer to 25 to 30 children. The applicant plans to make improvements to the site, such as a parking area, wheelchair accessibility, and fencing of the grassed area and backyard at the site. It has been noted that there is a large public park with a field and all ages playground located within 100 meters of the site, and that the daycare would probably use this regularly. It has also been noted that noise levels should be relatively low because the children are younger, and so during the day they might be inside or have quiet times during the day. Given concern from the neighborhood with respect to traffic and parking, administration or staff is of the opinion that adding an appropriate number of parking spaces, and 7 is what we are recommending, would make the daycare compatible with the neighborhood. The city has received a number of letters of opposition regarding the daycare, and just to summarize the various concerns and the city's response. The vacant building located at 502956A is not a typical house. And so the expectation that it might operate as a house would require substantial renovations, would have to be, and those renovations would have to be undertaken before it would be suitable for a residence. Without being modified into a residence or dwelling, other possibilities or uses for this site based on the current R1 zone include a community culture recreation facility, minor, and that it would be less than 400 square meters, a parking facility, so by that we mean a parking lot, I guess, a park or a playground, and a wind turbine generator. The proposed occupancy is not considered really more intense than the previous use, but it is a different use. And traffic congestion can be mitigated, we expect, by the development of appropriate parking sites, spaces or facility on at the building. Letters outlining the concerns for the daycare at this facility are found at the end of the report, but some of the concerns included that just feeling that R1 is not for commercial businesses, that there is insufficient parking, that the alley is not maintained in winter for high volumes of traffic. There could be danger to kids due to vehicle congestion. There is no outdoor play area for children. Its quiet neighborhood would be affected by traffic using this street as a dead end to turn around. The current dance studio parking has been problematic. The dance studio traffic was only 2 to 3 evenings per week and not in the summer. So having 20 to 40 vehicles 5 days a week all day is an invasion of neighborhoods, the neighborhood and the homes. Concern that neighboring driveways would be used or blocked, that the street is not designed for this volume of traffic, that the alley is not designed to handle this traffic. The volume of traffic might be unsafe for children. Alley is also used by a 3-story apartment building, and so the alley is already busy. And a question about where everyone would go if there was a fire. So that's just a summary. The actual comments are included in the agenda that we had received in time for the agenda printing. In terms of recommendations, the proposed daycare facility provides a commonly needed service in the community with close proximity to both residential areas and to downtown. So for example, to workers in the downtown who may need to have childcare in order to go to work. The proposal also offers an opportunity to make adaptive reuse of a building that is no longer being used for its original construction purpose as a place of worship and may otherwise be underutilized or may even be vacant. The use will be provincially regulated, including requirements for building code and fire safety. The subject site is within close proximity of a park and playground and will offer a fenced-in play yard on site. The operations will have hours limited to weekdays with a closing time of approximately 6:30 p.m. And while concerns have been expressed by the surrounding property owners, particularly about traffic and parking, the site would be required to provide a minimum of 7 parking spaces, and the site can accommodate this need. Therefore, based on this assessment, Planning and Development believes that the daycare facility is a compatible use and recommends approval subject to 16 conditions listed below. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. I appreciate you stepping in there. I think at this time it would be appropriate for me just to read through some of the timing of events that have occurred on this application, because there was some concern from some of community members that asked me about it, so I will go through it now. Letters included all of this information to follow, but I want to just go through it. The date for comments to be received was initially November 9th, 2021. To the
Mr.
date
Chair,
time.
December, sorry. That's a typo. It should be
Okay.
December. Sorry for interrupting.
That seemed odd, but I'll change that. Thank you. So December 9th. Then today will be the time for a decision to be made where we currently are. And then notice of decision, whatever it is, will be posted on the website on Friday following this meeting. The notification letter did not specify where a copy of the decision can be viewed, so a copy of the decision letter can certainly be viewed at City Hall. The application dates were as follows. The initial inquiry was on Thursday, November the 25th, 2021. The application fee was paid on Friday, November 26th, 21, and notification letters were sent out Friday, November 26th, 2021. And I'll just confirm that this was neighboring notification letters for the 60-meter radius. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Thank you. Comments were due back then from adjacent landowners on December 9th, 2021. Comments were received up until December 15th, which is today's date. And that's why there are some late submissions that have been included in our package in addition to those who were received earlier. Comments received in support and opposition from both residents within and outside of the 60-meter notification area were received, and I would suggest that probably this time more than any that I'm aware of previous, we did hear from individuals beyond the required 60-meter required notification distance, and certainly we wait input from all residents. Naturally, we have no way of filtering out comments and concerns, and rightly so, from anyone within our community or who feels affected by this decision. However, that waiting may vary from submission to submission. So I just thought that was important information for everyone at this meeting. Any questions thus far, commission members? Administration is the proponent with us this evening.
The applicant and the property owners are both in attendance.
Very good. Perhaps we could invite them up to join us as we go through a few things here. Might be a little more comfortable for you to grab a seat here. And is there a microphone for their use as well?
Yep, this microphone right here.
If you could just instruct them how to do that, I would appreciate it.
Thank you.
Good afternoon.
Thank you for joining us.
Absolutely.
If I could have you identify yourself for us, please.
My name is Darlene Boyko and I am one of the applicants.
Thank you.
I'm Jennifer Brugenkate and I'm the owner of the building.
Thank you very much, both of you. So first off, as you're well aware, it was recommended that this permit proceed from our administration, and there was a significant amount of conditions that were attached to that permit. Some, check my page numbers here, looks like it appears to be 16 so far. Are you aware of each and every one of those conditions?
Yes, Jennifer and I have both been through them and they're very viable conditions.
Okay. There's none that you would like to address at this time?
No, we didn't see any problems with meeting any of those conditions.
Okay, thank you. Do either of the other members have any questions for the applicants at this point in time, or of the comments for the conditions that were affixed? Member Gullickson, I'll just ask that all the other microphones be turned off at this time. Yeah, there you go.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair Creasy. I just have concerns regarding the parking on the south side. In reviewing previous permits or applications for this location, the parking has been an issue there that was never really addressed. And I would like clarification on how you plan to address that issue and what your time frame would be for that.
I think there is a diagram attached there for 7 spots on the south side. And then by calculation, there should be another 3 spots directly in front of the building that would be available for parking. And based on the fact that we're headed into winter, I understand that we would have the year to complete that work, which would commence in the spring once construction allowed.
Member Gullickson,
Oh,
I just because it's relevant to that very comment, when I initially looked at this set of documentation here, I thought, well, where on earth, where's the sheet with the parking? Because that, quite frankly, is always an issue, especially with these types of applications. So each individual parking spot is not shown on the satellite view. However, it is indicated in text, a minimum of 6 parking spaces, which happens to coincide with the south side of the building with access off of the alley laneway, I believe that is, and then the accessible parking on the, I guess that would be the north west side of the property. You have that before you? Very, very good. No, not individually. It certainly does not. Go ahead.
And I mean, you're well aware that this is hard surfacing they're talking about, correct? Yeah, okay. Now, and I know this isn't necessarily our issue with this, but the space in the back, is that where the play area is going to be?
So in consultation with the Child Care Act and our licensing authority, we are required to have a fenced outdoor play area. But with the new Child Care Act, we are also permitted to use a play area, that is within reasonable walking distance for ages 3 to 6, which is the age that we would be catering to. And with the park being within 100 meters, that would be reasonable walking space.
Okay, so you wouldn't necessarily be developing a play area then on this property?
No, sir, we would be. Our goal is to develop a fenced play area at the back of the property.
Was that the only 2 at this time? Member Nowichin, anything right at this time?
I don't really have many questions related. It's more general concerns and history of the property that I have concern with. Its initial intention being a church, which it only occupied for 10 years, and the dance studio for 35, being a very, and then this may be just my opinion, but a poor use of the building, the location. It's very, it's a very inconvenient location to be working, to be operating a commercial business out of, and it affects a lot of neighboring properties. So I don't really have any questions. More so, I feel like I need to hear that the neighboring properties are being extremely heavily considered in this this application, because it affects probably more neighbors than any commercial property I could think of in Lacombe.
Certainly, you have an opportunity to answer. Let's have you turn the microphone on there. If you could just move it a little closer to your self as well. Thank you.
Sorry. I completely understand your concerns with that. Just to clarify for you guys, so that you have a little bit of history as to numbers, the application is for a maximum of 40 children. In the entire time that I've owned the building and run the dance studio out of it, I've never had less than 40 dancers. Maximum we had was 85 prior to COVID. And when they were attending, not only were the children there, but parents were attending as well. So numbers far exceeded what numbers would actually be at the daycare. So actually traffic and congestion in the street would actually be minimized considerably, because this would be a drop off and pickup situation as opposed to at the dance studio when parents would come with their children and stay. Prior to COVID especially, I would have parents and children there sometimes up to 2.5 hours a night, where a car would be sitting on the street or on the south side of the building. Post-COVID, when parents were dropping off and waiting in their vehicles, we had idling vehicles on the road. I have parents from out of town, so they would wait on the street or on the south side of the building, and cars would idle for half an hour, 45 minutes till their dancer was done. With the daycare, where it's a drop off and pickup, that would greatly minimize. And it also, I noticed in the letters, 2 to 3 nights a week. We ran 4 nights a week, and we didn't start till 5 and we didn't end till 9:30. So that was more of a disruption to the neighborhood than the daycare hours would be, just for some clarification.
Thank you for that.
For the, just for an example, I think I made reference to this in my reply to some of the concerns. I own a preschool up by Burman University, and we are directly across the street from Beardsley. It is all condos, it is all residential. Directly in front of our bay, we have access to 8 parking spots. I have 62 children in program right now, and pick up and drop off is quick. We are literally 15 minutes from the first child walking in the door to the last child being dropped off. We average 25 children per day, and it is not disruptive to the community at all. It is in and out, very respectful families. We understand that this is a residential area. It is not our goal to come in and be loud and disrupt. What we want to do is create a safe environment for kids to have a green space, to not be where we are in a light industrial commercial area that we have to pay to use a playground at a private school because there isn't anything within walking distance. Our goal in appealing to this building is that it is in an area where it's not high traffic. There are no industrial vehicles, and we understand that there are driveways. We would make darn sure that people are very respectful of that. We would address it at orientation. It would be part of our parent handbook. We would take great care in respecting those citizens that live there.
So I just want to be clear, are you suggesting that the operation of this facility then would be relatively the same as that operation?
I would actually expect it to be a little bit less, just because first of all, it's going to be a startup, and our goal is there will be less children. We won't be even licensed. I made reference, I think we have over 200 spaces available at the play school throughout the 4 days. This would not be the same. This is run on a bit of a different, so children would be recurring day after day after day to a maximum of, we anticipate, about 30 children.
Thank you. So, Councillor Gluckson?
Thank you very much, Chair Creasy. The application is for 40 though, is that not correct?
It would be to a maximum of 40, and that was just based on safety code after consulting with IJB. That was just a number that they said, based on that building, that would be the maximum that we would be permitted to operate.
Thank you. Is the parking issue, does that affect the number of students allowed there?
Our land use bylaw is not very clear on parking requirements for something like this, so we used a commercial building of that size. And we compared that to what a school would be like, and both calculations came up with 7 spaces.
For 40 children.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like when you compare it to a school, yes.
Okay.
And so for that parking, then was it anticipated that there would be 7 staff members potentially if the maximum of 40 children was reached, or is that some other reason for the 7 stalls?
The calculation takes into account the number of staff and the number of students based on age group. And so with 5 to 6 staff and the number of children, that's
Okay.
how the numbers worked out. May I also just add something with respect
Certainly.
to parking before we carry on? We did have a back and forth discussion regarding parking where we had the lines drawn in as kind of like a conversation piece to get prepared to develop the parking. But condition number 10 is worded such that the applicant and the department would work together to come up with an acceptable parking plan. We wanted to consult with engineering and the roads departments to get some feedback on the actual design. So you'll notice in the report that there wasn't a full parking plan because it would still, there's still some things that need to be worked out with that. So I just wanted to clarify.
Thank you for explaining why, because normally we do receive one that shows all parking spots. So that's fair enough though. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes.
One of the things that was also discussed was signage. There is a very large sign on the front of the property that kind of, when we discussed parking, it would end prior to that. In further discussions between Jennifer and I, if we removed this huge sign, it would also allow for another 2 parking spots to be taken to the edge of the property rather than have the excessive signage. We would reduce the amount of signage and extend that by 2 more stalls.
Thank you. So I see no more questions from the commission. So I will ask at this time, are there any individuals in the gallery today who wish to be heard? I see a couple of hands at the back. I think through the veil of our current masking situation, I see Chuck would like to speak. If you would care to come forward. And while you're assembling your notes there, I would remind you to please, for the record, state your name with the microphone on. Give a quick second here to sanitize.
Albert Nichols, everyone knows me as Chuck, so that's what we're going to go by.
Very good.
And I live on the property directly across the street from this. Before I get started, I'd like to point out a discrepancy that's already happened in this room tonight. You read out when the letters were made up and when they were mailed and asked if that was correct, and she said it was correct. But she told me something completely different at the back of the room right before the meeting started. The letters went out on the 3rd of December, not on the 26th of November.
Fair enough.
She told
He
me.
being,
Ms. Chappelle here. This is
okay, thank you.
which it is. We were right there in the doorway. Buddy heard you. On the Friday, the 3rd.
I would remind you that everyone in this room will make your comments to the chair.
Sorry.
There will be no conversation from person to person.
Yes, sure, absolutely.
So there's obviously some discrepancy there, and that was regarding the mail out date of
Absolutely.
the neighboring consultation.
Nobody in the neighborhood got their letters before the 6th of December.
Okay, and
And
as I
that
read
gave
out,
us 2.5 days to respond.
as I read out there, then the notification letters were sent out on Friday, November 26th, and you're saying that your letter was received when?
6th of December. That's 10 days to go 6 blocks through the same post office, so something doesn't jive there.
I don't know what to say about that. I have no reason to doubt you. all of our notifications are not hand delivered. We do use, as is outlined, we do use a postal system. Ms. Chappelle, can you verify for me if and when the notification letters went out? Was it in fact on Friday, November the 26th, or no? Okay, thank you. You may continue.
Yeah. Okay, I think it should be brought to attention that all of the opposition to this are neighbors who are directly affected by this. And the people who are in favor of it, some of them don't even live in town. It's friends of the applicant or friends of the property owner or whatever it is. They have no ties to the neighborhood whatsoever. Now, they say that the proposed hours are going to be from 7 a.m. to 6:30 p.m. The staff is going to be coming before that and leaving after that. The summertime is a big concern for us in the neighborhood because all of a sudden there's doors opening and closing and kids making noise and everything else. Well, we're still trying to get our sleep. And I don't think that's fair to any of the residents in the neighborhood. And I don't think any of the people in this room would like this happening outside their homes. They're trying to make this seem like there's going to be less traffic because there was such a huge number of students at the dance studio. But what you have to remember is that all of those students didn't come every day. They were split up over several days. Whereas here you would be having with a daycare, people coming every day, large numbers of people coming every day. The parking on the street has been congested when they have something going on at the dance studio, but it hasn't been prohibitive. It starts around supper time, ends 8:30, 9 o'clock at night. It's all said, all done. Neighborhood's quiet. It's all closed down from spring until fall. We got a quiet neighborhood all summer. This won't happen with daycare. Regarding the parking that has been brought up, the only way they're going to fit that number of vehicles along that side of the building is if they pull out the sign and use the front yard of the building. Because what has been neglected to be mentioned is that there's 2 doors on the south side of that building that are going to be fire escapes, and you can't park in front of the fire escapes. The other thing that hasn't been brought up about the accessible parking on the front, are they going to be required to climb over the curb, or the sidewalk's going to be modified to accept a ramp? Or are they going to be expected to drive into the neighbor's driveway to get into the accessible parking? None of these questions have been properly answered. And if they do make access from the front, that's going to cut down street parking in front of their building. Now, I think I've made it known that I wasn't really happy with the fact that the applicant had access to all of our opposition points before they were even published. I don't think that was right at all. I don't know if that's common or if it's a friendship thing or what it was, but I don't think that it was right. Now, they're saying in the response letter to our talking points that the building be used in a lesser capacity than it's been used to date in a commercial capacity. This is false. It would be a much greater capacity than it ever has been in the past. Now, just for some history, I've been there. This is my 30th winter in that spot. And as such, I want to stress the point, the street is never maintained in the wintertime by the city. It has not once been maintained. Every spring, we get it plowed one time, usually about 2 days before a major storm, and then we're right back where we started. The alleys have never been plowed. Exactly 0 times they've been plowed since I've been there. The alley by my house, since I've retired, is cleaner because I have time to clean it now, but that's just by my house. Over the years, anybody who's lived in this neighborhood for any amount of time has been out in the street pushing out cars that are stuck in the street or in the alley. I personally have been stuck in the alley many times. First thing in the morning, it's not pleasant. 20 below, you're out there with kitty litter and shovels trying to get your vehicle moving. Excess traffic in that area will just compound this and make it worse. The ruts will be deeper. We have nobody coming by plowing for us. I don't think that the expected traffic load from this is going to be a positive outcome for the neighborhood at all. Now I really had to laugh at this one, where the dance studio is within walking distance to the pool splash park. Well, you take a 3 or 4-year-old and walk them all the way from our neighborhood down to the splash park and back. I'll tell you, they're going to be some tired little children, because that's a long distance. And a lot of the, I think I covered that, the neighbors who responded positively were not in our neighborhood. Now, traffic in the alleys. These are single lane alleys. That means that if somebody's coming from one direction and somebody's coming from the other direction, something's got to give. And I see it all the time in the alley. Someone starts into the alley, but there's already somebody coming from the other direction, and then they got to back up. And if there's a large amount of traffic and people are trying to get through, this is going to cause nothing but congestion. This is a dead end street. At the end of the street is an alley that goes both ways. And they are single lane alleys, and they are never maintained. This is not a good situation to have extra traffic. The traffic from the dance studio was never that bad. They're trying to make it seem like it was, but you know, when you're in the military and you want to move troops surreptitiously, you throw a smoke grenade. And that's what's happening here. Traffic from the dance studio was, there are times there was a lot of it, but it's never been to the point that we are expecting from this. And they say it's going to be a 40 child daycare, but they're only expecting 25 or 30. But this is going to be, with the new $10 subsidized daycare, people are going to be clamoring to get into this. They'll have a waiting list, I guarantee it. Now, at the south end of the street, there's a private driveway, and it is in line with the street. The guy that lives there couldn't be here tonight. He had other commitments, but he is able to stand in his kitchen and watch people drive up his driveway to get out to 50th Ave. It just, oh, there's a short route, bang, down his driveway, out onto 50th Ave. He can stand in his kitchen and watch people drive by. He now has to park a vehicle in his driveway so they can't get by. And it'll just get worse if we allow this kind of traffic on our street. Now, she claims she came and observed traffic, but she only observed it for a few hours, and or claims to, and at a time of her choosing. But in the neighborhood, most of us have observed it for years. And we kind of like our quiet little neighborhood. We don't really want all this excessive traffic first thing in the morning and throughout the day and then into the evening. We don't want the noise involved. Yes, there's a comment, traffic is more likely to pack the snow down and reduce the impassability of the lane. Well, obviously, they've never spent winter on our street. It's exactly the opposite. The alleys get so rutted that if you're driving a small car, you can't drive in the alleys because they'll bottom out. I'm going to skip that because that person's online here. The residents also shared that the daycare would run 12 months out of the year, whereas in reality, it would be more aligned with the school calendar and break for part of the summer and close for most extended breaks. How does this even make sense? School's out, there's more people that need daycare. You know, if their kids are in school, they don't need the daycare, but when school's out, they need it. So how does it even make sense they're gonna close when the schools close? Like I said, smoke grenade. Now, in the past, any noise and disruption we've had in our neighborhood has been, like I said, just before supper and into the evening, all said, all done, gone home by around 9. This noise would start in the morning. The traffic would start in the morning while we're still sleeping. And that's just not fair to anybody in the neighborhood. And then she was complaining that perhaps the noise would come from the residents in the area during the quiet time. Well, is it reasonable to expect people in the neighborhood who actually live here to be quiet, to adapt to the lifestyle of the daycare? It just doesn't seem reasonable to me at all that we should have to be quiet because they're having their naps now.
Was there any new points?
I'm just checking. I covered a couple without looking at my notes. I can't think of anything offhand. The parking is, I did cover that about the fire escapes. Yeah, I think I'm good at the moment. I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to be heard.
Appreciate that, and thank you for being organized and presenting those. And I believe I saw one other hand up when I asked if you can slowly make your way forward, sir. I'll just give you 1 second here. We'll have to comply with sanitation requirements. I was going to do in here first. Thank you for joining us. Please state your name for the record, and then the floor is yours.
Okay, my name is Zach Walker. So I've just recently moved to the community. We just moved in last summer, or just, sorry, last spring rather. My biggest concern from this is the added traffic volume. I have, you know, like I said, not lived there as long as the previous speaker had. But in my short time there, I've noticed that it is a very quiet street at this time. From my understanding is that the Yellow Door Dance Academy hasn't been very active in my time of being there. So at this current state, when we bought the house, we were very much like, yes, this is a quiet community. This is why we want to buy it. It is a short trip for my job to and from through the back alley. As I need to get to my job at, you know, all hours of the night and get through that back alley there. So my biggest concern with the added of the daycare would be the increased traffic. Now, in the response that the applicant has written, it is said that yes, we will utilize the alleyways and heading, you know, west out the west alleyway, and you know, just utilizing the alley and not using the main street if at all possible, you know, just reminding parents and stuff like that. I mean, that's, I think we're, you know, wishing at that point, right? People would follow that suggestion. I believe that would it's only going to increase the traffic volume of that tiny street. The applicant also stated earlier in her initial response or in her initial comments that it was very comparable to the Beardsley address. However, her Beardsley address is in the community, is in a industrial park with a gigantic parking lot in there. And it has more, it's not a dead end road, and it isn't a congested dead end road, unlike an alleyway. Okay. And also this dead end road is pretty tight, even with the current traffic volume as it is. So trying to get in and out of there, especially since they don't plow our roads, and the back alleyway, it's going to be a nightmare for anybody to even try to get in there. I know they put in a parking lot. They want to put in a parking lot for five of the staff that are proposed to be there, where's everybody else gonna park, right? Like, I understand that they're gonna put a few more parking spots in there, but 15-minute drop-off time? I mean, come on, parents like to all gab and sit there and chit chat and stuff like that. There's no way that that's gonna be a 15-minute drop-off at least, come on. People are gonna go park down the road so they can meet up with, you know, this kid's parents' mom and organize whatever they need to organize. I mean, they're not gonna, you know, it's simply just pull up, drop their kids off and get going. It's gonna, you know, I want a spot where I can go and sit with, to chat with so-and-so forever. So that's gonna be down our road. And just added agreements with Chuck there, that back alleyway, that's a tight alleyway. Sure, they have the parking lot for the apartment building, but I drive back there with my truck, and I borderline clipping the hedges on the way in. So somebody's coming in off the road, and with increased traffic, it's going to be a nightmare, and we're going to have rear ends incidences on that main road leading into that alleyway. So it's in a wildly inconvenient spot for sure. That's my, thanks guys.
Thank you. So I will ask once again if there's anybody in the gallery that wishes to speak. Thank you for the two that did. And I believe that I have not asked yet for those of you that are joining us electronically. Is there anyone that wishes to be heard at this time? If so, if you just hold up your hand. And my apologies, but the signage is very small. I believe that is Bev.
Yes, it is.
Recognize first. The floor is yours.
All right. Thank you very much. We live directly beside the dance studio, and we
I'm sorry to interrupt, Bev. Please just state your full name for the record.
Oh, I'm sorry. My name is Beverly Schloss. I live
Thank
at
you.
5031 56A. This is Roger Schloss.
All right.
We live directly beside the dance studio and are featured quite heavily in Dar Boyko's letter to you. I think the first thing that's important as homeowners, when you're looking at purchasing a home in an area that has a potential commercial property with discretionary use, that you look at precedent for that building. And for 35 years, that was used as a dance studio. 3 or 4 days a week, 8 to 9 months a year. So, you know, and when you can, you know, if you're looking at purchasing a home, you're thinking our summers will be quiet. We will have our road back. We will have a quiet street for most of the day until later in the day. So a precedent has been set here for the level of activity and business that occurs there, and it's a precedent of 35 years. And us homeowners have made decisions on purchasing based on that. And as you know, the previous two speakers, traffic, parking, and noise have been a problem where people are in our driveway, using it as a turnaround, blocking our drive, like congestion on the street. These are ongoing problems, and we endure them, and we try to be good neighbors because we have the idea that, you know, for 3 or 4 months of the year, we can live normally like other citizens in residential streets that don't have commercial properties. You know, and we're looking at, as in all situations, I think it's important, as was stated earlier, that we judge a situation based on maximum capacity. So that's 40 children and at least 5 or 6 staff members. So if they manage to squeak out 10 parking spots, that's potentially 4 parking spots for potentially 40 vehicles. And that leaves traffic of over 90 vehicles a day on our little dead end street that you get out of by a back alley. A note from Dara's letter was that maintenance, to quote her, maintenance and the condition of the alley is not the responsibility of businesses. That is a poorly maintained alley where people get stuck all the time. It is a problem for them and for the people coming to the potential daycare. So, as Chuck said earlier, that daycare, it often becomes impassable. And then during heavy rains, Chuck and Marilyn are always out there trying to clear the drain because our road floods. Another point is, to me specifically, was to suggest that I have a double driveway. This is misleading. I have a single driveway, it's just longer. Again, I find the idea of 10 spaces with so much traffic woefully inadequate. The suggestion that, you know, all the noise is going to be kept inside the building. No, it's an old building. We do hear the dance studio. We do hear people talking. You know, and I think it's important to remember that we as neighbors have tried to be cooperative and have had a friendly relationship with the owners of the buildings. And in fact, there was an exercise class that took place there that was so loud and so disruptive. I had the owner, Jennifer, was bringing me bottles of wine as an apology, and then brought me more wine when that exercise class was allowed to come back. And, you know, to further say, you know, our reason to objecting this is not from a prior contentious relationship whatsoever. My son cut the grass over there this summer. So we have endured a lot with parking and congestion and noise. We have been good neighbors, but we're being asked for too much. You know, we made decisions based on purchasing our homes there with what was there, the precedent that was set for 35 years. You know, the claim is that, oh, this daycare is going to boost your property values. Her realtor told her so. Well, I'll find you a lot more realtors that say that, no, this is going to negatively impact our property values. So we've made improvements to our home and we've taken care of our home, and we're going to lose. Without a doubt, you cannot tell me that living in close proximity to a daycare with high traffic and noise is going to do anything but harm our property values. Another issue is that when that street becomes congested, and a real worry for us in the winter, and it should be a worry for everyone involved here, is that because there is not enough parking, people will encroach as close as they can, and sometimes blocking our driveway, but they get as close as they possibly can to the outer edges. So when it's like threading a needle sometimes when we are trying to back up. And we go so slow. And, you know, there's been the claim that, well, parents are going to hold their children's hand. It only takes one child to pull away from their mother or father's or an adult's hand and run in behind our vehicle or somebody attending my own day home, and them to be run over. So I say, City of Lacombe, that is a real risk, and you know about it. On a personal note, I was shocked and appalled at the letter and the light that Dar submitted and how I was painted. Dar Boyko contacted me through Facebook Messenger. She tried very hard to gain my support for her daycare plans. She began her conversation with me stating, and I have this conversation if any would like to see it. She began her conversation with me stating that we have been acquainted for many years, and I think that what you do is amazing. She started telling me about her plans. We had first thought we'd go for coffee. It wasn't going to work out. Then she told me about her daycare. I shared with her my very real concerns with traffic, noise, parking, and disruption to our neighborhood, and how difficult that parking issue would be for her people as well. I did talk with her as she spoke in her letter about someone who is familiar, because Dar was also a day home provider, who's familiar with the inconvenience of inspections. And living next to a daycare would certainly put me on their radar. It was not that I should not be inspected, but it is stressful. It's like having a teacher that wants to give you pop
Bev,
quiz.
I'm going to
results.
interrupt you right there. Please limit your comments to the items at hand. This is not a discussion about your property or your operations on it. This is about the building and property that is before us. Okay.
Okay. Well, I operate a day home there. I need accessibility for the people that I have provided safe and attentive care to their children for 20 years. They are currently able to access my home without issue in the morning, but it's frequently a problem at the end of the day. Where people block my driveway, they use it as a turnaround. Sometimes, yeah, park right in it, block it, use it as a turnaround, and I have trouble operating my own business. So I concur with the other issues that are brought forth here. I also think with the comments directed towards me that we as respondents need to be able to come to this discussion, to be able to speak freely and honestly without the threat of retaliation and the damage to our businesses and our reputation, which has been done to me in a public forum. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. And was anybody else interested in speaking that's joining us electronically? I will ask one more time if anybody else is interested in speaking that's joining us electronically at this time. Very good, thank you. So there's certainly a number of items there that were partially addressed or touched upon throughout the meeting here. Certainly a lot of concern over hours of operation, traffic and parking, I would suggest are three, and perhaps noise. I want to just, once again, if I could ask the proponent to come up to the front here. And I would like for you to just to better outline, there's been a lot of times and whatnot talked about here. In the report, it says that your expected time of operation is between 7:30 and 6:30. Is that correct?
Between 7 a.m. and 6:30 p.m.
7 and 6:30?
Yes, staff would, we would have opening staff who would arrive at 6:30 just to prepare the center for the children arriving. In all of my research, I have found the majority of children will arrive between probably that 7:45 to 8:30, hitting those families who are starting work at 8 a.m., 8:30 a.m., kind of 9 a.m. It will be very rare that there are children arriving right at 7 unless you're dealing with medical professionals who start that 7 a.m. shift, that type of thing. The last pickup would be about 6:15 p.m. and that's just to accommodate those families where people may work retail and work till 6 p.m. and then staff would close center.
Okay, so the hours of operation then that were stated were for your students to arrive.
Yes.
Within and depart. Okay,
Yes.
very good. There seemed to be some discrepancy from some of the input that I have heard with regards to visitors per day, and certainly as compared to the previous studio that was at this site. I think it's pretty plain to see that there's an expectation of, are we calling it 5 or 6 employees? So there's 10 or 12 trips in and out, and up to theoretically 40 students. I don't know how many individuals there would be at the same household, but theoretically another 80. So we're talking about 90 pickup and deliveries, I guess we'll call them. And are you aware of the previous operations, or should I be asking
You
that
should probably
question of Jennifer? And you can stay up here actually too. You were both here once before. I don't think it's going to kill us now. So I guess I just want to better understand those two and about the possible impacts here. I guess theoretically, we could be looking at an additional 90 trips in here over nothing happening on that site. And what was the impact of the previous studio?
Okay, we operated 4 nights a week. Students would come, my smaller students came 1 night a week. Older students would come 2 to 3 times a week, depending on when classes ran. I had worked the numbers actually, so that I kind of had this for you, so that I could reference it. Sorry. So given the 2 studios operating, I had 2 staff on site throughout the time of opening, as well as myself. I wasn't there every night, but so 3 vehicles just from a staffing standpoint. When students were there, as I said, vehicles stayed and didn't drop and depart. We did have drop-offs as well, but especially for small students, our younger children, those classes were 8 to 12 students. Pre-COVID, they were 12. During COVID, they were 8, and those parents would stay for that time period and be parked at the same time. In the other studio, we would have also 8 to 12 students pre-COVID. After COVID, of course, numbers were smaller, but again, parents staying, and we would have in and out and constantly that whole evening between half-hour classes, 45-minute classes. So cars were coming and dropping off during that whole time. Does that sort of clarify
No,
for you?
that works. Thank you.
Okay.
And to the proponent, once again, it's your belief that this being a pickup and drop off situation, that there's really no need for additional parking because the vast majority are drop the child off and leave, or pick up and leave. Is that
Yes, sir.
correct?
Yeah. With my experience, I've been operating my preschool now for 5 years, sorry. This is our 6th year. And everything is pick up, drop off. And, the gentleman previously said 15-minute drop offs were not realistic. They're actually very realistic. Parents are either on their way to work or they've been at work all day. They've got activity commitments. They've got meal commitments. They're not interested in hanging out and chatting with us.
Okay.
It's.
Well, that's fine. Thank you. And did you mention what age range?
Our center will be 19 months to 6 years of age, not yet grade 1.
Okay. And then the idea that the operation of the facility would be non-existent for the summer months, and what would you say to that?
Sorry. Not that it would be non-existent, but our current plan would be that we are closed for 2 weeks in July and 2 weeks in August, and that we would follow all stat holidays, weekends. There's no before and after school care, just because the licensing application that we've made would not allow for children of that age to participate in our program. It is specifically targeted for 19 months to children still attending kindergarten, but not yet grade 1.
Okay, so the reference to off school time, whatnot, really doesn't hold water then, because these youngsters are not yet in.
No, sir, they're not.
Okay.
We leave that to the before and after school care program here in town.
Thank you. The other operational issues, I guess we could talk about later here, as far as snow and maintenance, that kind of thing. I think that's all the questions that I had for these individuals. What else? Member Gullickson, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair Creasy. I'd just like to comment on a few things here. The risk to children, I think that applies at any location where you're dropping kids off, even at your own, and other daycare in town here. I watched the other daycare the other day just to get a feel for what it's like. And there's inherent risk dropping off in the parking lots or whatever. It's up to the parents to make sure the children are safe. So I think that doesn't really apply here. But one of the concerns I had was a bus pulled up at the daycare and dropped kids off. And I understand those kids are potentially funded Would that happen at your location?
The Tiny Tracks Daycare that you're referring to does cater to before and after school programming, and that, so therefore children do get on and off the bus there. We would not be catering to that particular client base.
Thank you very much for that. I appreciate that. And like the number you're applying for is 40, and I have an issue with that number. As far as the amount of traffic and so on. I mean, I would be much more comfortable at the 25 number than at 40. Not saying that I would be totally comfortable, but the 40 number does scare me. I'll just let you know that now.
With the number 40, to clarify, came, we asked IJB, pardon me, we asked Sterling to do a walkthrough with us to determine whether or not the building would even be feasible from a safety perspective to operate as a daycare. We felt it was no use wasting time in planning or any other area if it wasn't going to be a realistic option. And in walking through, that was the number that Sterling pretty much throughout went in terms of the square footage, the fire system that is in place, the number of fire exits, the route of those exits, childcare licensing requirements. He felt that a maximum of 40 would be a realistic number for the application. To be honest, my programs are about quality, not quantity. Like I said, our current preschool, we could have 48 children at a time is what we're licensed for. And that's not a realistic number. Licensing proposes a number based on square footage, and that is what they license you for. I cannot imagine having 48 3- and 4-year-olds and providing a quality program. So that is not our goal. The number 40 is what was used for the purpose of the application. Determining the space, I anticipate that we would probably be closer to 25, at very most 30 children, because of what our goal is to offer in terms of programming.
There was some mention from one of the presenters here that the proponents were given the complaint letters prior to the agenda item, and if in fact this is common. And before I allow staff to answer, I will say that it has been certainly a directive by the elected members, especially myself as the mayor, for the building department to adapt to the needs of our community and be engaged and try and facilitate development, certainly not at all cost, but to go the extra mile. So I'll be perfectly honest with you, and I don't know if this is common practice, but I don't think that it was done this is not an unusual happening, and I expect that it was done to facilitate some sort of agreement between the proponent and the neighbors, trying to make for a happy neighborhood, so to speak. But that's my take. I will ask staff if in fact that is accurate, and to give me their justification for doing so.
I would agree with what you said. It's trying to be transparent and share the information from the neighbors was our mechanism of trying to work with you to give you an opportunity to maybe address the parking, talk about it, and get a sense of how real the concerns were from the neighborhood.
I would also say that given the timelines that are on here, I think that it's a reasonable expectation that there would be some give and take from the parties to try and come up with a reasonable and satisfactory solution to some of these issues. I think it's unreasonable to suggest that any of our staff here at the city on a first name basis with anyone who chooses to develop or would put themselves in a position to offer favoritism because of a friendship. So I just want to make that perfectly clear. was also something mentioned that I was hoping that administration could speak to. With the current plan showing the parking configuration on the south side of the building, there was made mention of some fire escapes there. And I was wanted to know if in fact means of egress would be impacted by this parking, or is the distance such that that's taken into account with that layout?
Yes, absolutely. And I regret that I didn't include some sort of drawing with, parking spaces on there, because it was part of our earlier conversations. And we did actually identify both of the exits on the south side of the building as not being a space where you could park in front of. And because I'm lucky enough to have access to a real property report, it lays out the exact dimensions of land that are available to develop into parking. So I was able to go through and determine that the 2.5 meter by 5.5 meter parking spaces would in fact fit on that parcel of land, and the wheelchair accessible parking space would be required to be hard surfaced, located at the front of the building, and it was identified by the building codes inspector that they would be required to build a ramp to access the building there. So there are some details that we'd have to work out, depending on what MPCs may require in terms of potentially additional parking, and then of course the comments that we get back from engineering and the roads department.
Also, given the ages and whatnot, I just want to know if there was perhaps some confusion between what I heard and what one of the presenters heard as far as walking children to the splash park. I happen to agree that the splash park seems like a very distant amenity. I'm sure it'd be fun to use for youngsters, but that seems unrealistic. Was it the splash park, a city facility, or was it a neighboring park that you were talking about?
The parks in general.
Okay.
Sorry, go ahead,
That's
Jen.
right. Just to the east of the property, half a block is a beautiful little park with 2 ball diamonds in, actually. And that's the one that they were referring to.
Okay. A play park, not a splash park. Okay, that makes better sense. Okay, thank you. Street. Just quickly, there was also mention about an alley that aligned with the street. That certainly would be annoying. And I would suggest that whoever owns that property contact our engineering department to see if there's some changes that can be made. That, however, is not really germane to this discussion. It's would certainly be annoying if you live there, however. And we went through the hours of applicative operations. Very good. So to summarize, it sounds like to me that we've got some neighborhood residents who are extremely concerned about their quality of life, and suggest that there's going to be a drastic increase in traffic, in noise, and general inconvenience. To be perfectly honest, I feel for them. I'm not totally sold that these fears are all justified. I think that we do have some ways that we can help lessen the impact of many operations in the city. And some of the comments that were made about street maintenance and whatnot, I think that residential street, like most residential streets in Lacombe, is in fact a priority 3 on snow clearing. So I completely understand that in fact you probably only did see 1, perhaps 2 of the most clearings per year. Myself, I'm in a little different area on an arterial road, so mine are cleaned far more regularly, but I can see how that would be annoying. And certainly that, depending on how this goes, that might be something that we can look at for an area of improvement in our operations. Any additional questions from Councillor Gullickson?
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. There's really not much of a question. It's just that I keep going back to the application being 40. I do have a concern with that because that gives the opportunity to be 40 children at that location at some point down the road. I would feel much better knowing that the maximum was 25. As far as traffic and so on, that's substantially different than 40. And that number sticks in my head. And again, watching the daycare the other day and watching the traffic, it was substantial, but not unmanageable, especially at that number. If the number of children there were lesser, I would feel much better about the project.
Ms. Boyko, you had suggested that the 40 number was an unreasonable one, and you pride yourself on providing a quality experience. Is there a number lower than that that would be reasonable? Because we do have the ability at this forum to impose whatever conditions we see fit, and that in fact may be one of them.
Okay. To be honest, in the Licensing Act, ratios play a large part. So for example, we have proposed using the downstairs studio as our toddler room to prevent children from being up and down the stairs. That particular room would be 1 staff member to every 6 children. We would never put more than 12 toddlers in that room. That would allow for 16 children upstairs, which would bring us to 28, which is why we said between 25 and 30. That being said, not all children will attend on all the days.
Right. I guess I'm politely saying that the concerns that your neighbors have, in my opinion, are perhaps a little exaggerated. However, I expect there would be a far different outlook for a maximum of 30 than there is for 40. Is that something that you would consider?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. I don't know if either of the gentlemen sitting beside me are interested in adding that as a condition, but I would suggest that is a far different impact for area residents in the numbers of traffic drop-offs and pickups than 40. That's all I'm saying. But
yeah, and we would be willing to make that concession.
And I believe that I asked you once before, but just to be sure, there were so far 16 existing conditions attached to your permit. Are you fully aware of each and every one of them? Are there any that you would like to go through at this time? And I say at this time politely because there is no other time.
Oh, no, sir, we're good.
We did have a question on the parking lot on the south side. Just because of the alley. Currently, the lot itself has a rut into the grass where everyone drives on my property to avoid the potholes in the alley. And my concern with hard surfacing that is the angle of it into that alley. Gravel would be no issue, but from a safety standpoint of that slope with ice and snow even cleared, that's a concern I have as an owner of the building. Gravel wouldn't be an issue. The proposed handicap space at the front being hard surfaced wouldn't be an issue just because of the way you could do the grading. But that was the only one on the conditions that it's not undoable. It was just more practicality wise based on what is actually there.
Fair enough. Administration, where does that number fall in here? I'm just trying to glance through my conditions.
The only condition we have around the parking area development is that they're to submit a parking plan to the satisfaction of the development officer, which means other city departments. And as I've mentioned previously, we still needed to work out what the city is going to deem acceptable as your surface. And so that would involve consultations with someone who, you know, understands drainage and whatnot. So we hadn't decided if it was going to be paved or gravel at this point, unless.
And that is covered under item or number
That would
10.
be number 10.
Very good. I guess to be blunt about it, safety is certainly one of the items that will be considered by the engineering department. And that is not for, certainly safety is a concern, but that's not something that we're going to change or discuss at this meeting. Any additional ones? Are there any from commission members? Very good. Unless somebody is prepared to make a motion. Councillor Gullickson.
Thank you, Chair Creasy. I will make the motion that the Municipal Planning Commission approve a daycare facility occupancy of a maximum of 30 at 5029 56 A Street, Lot 10, Block 40, Plan 4048 HW. Approval is in respect to works consistent with the development permit application form and plans submitted by the applicant with the 16 conditions that have been presented.
Very good. And that was a maximum of 30 children. Very good. Anything additional? So that is the question before us at this time. I will call the question and all those in favor and those opposed. Let the record reflect that there was 2 in favor, Chair Creasy and Member Gullickson, 1 opposed, Member Nowichin, and therefore that item is passed. So I expect that that decision will be posted as outlined in the notes, and someone from the planning department will be in contact with the proponents about next steps. Of course, this decision, like any other, has a minimum waiting period of 28 days, I say hesitantly. That's correct. And is open to appeal, just like any decision in this body is. All right, thank you. The next item up is a summary of permits issued by the development officer or developing authority. Do you have any at this time?
I know that development officer Jennifer Kirk has been very busy working on some permits, and I had agreed to share her progress, but I unfortunately did not print off the form to bring with me tonight to discuss her applications. Perhaps she might have them on hand.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Kirk, well, thank you. I was just going to say, are you hearing us? I thought I saw an icon with your name. If you could just go through the summary of permits issued, I would appreciate it. The floor is yours.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. So the first one is for a home occupation 2, personal services. It was a hair salon. So that's at 28 Country Ridge Close. There was a total of 24 property owners within 60 meters from the site that were notified. No opposition was received. Therefore, it was conditionally approved on December 9th. The appeal period ends on December 30th. And the second one is for a 0.09 meter, 10% rear yard setback variance on a pre-existing detached garage at 33 Mackenzie Crescent. So with this one, there was 40 property owners within 60 meters of the site that were notified. No opposition was received. Therefore, that one was conditionally approved on December 8th, and the appeal period also ends on December 30th. And that is it.
Thank you very much, Development Officer Kirk. We appreciate that.
You're
And
welcome.
Thank you for joining us under the weather. We appreciate it.
Thanks.
All right, we have tentatively set our next meeting for January 5th. Are there any applications under consideration at this time for that meeting?
We have received an application for discretionary use, but the development officer has the authority to issue that. So there are no applications at this time.
Very good. At this point in time, we will remove that date from our calendar unless we hear information otherwise, okay?
Okay.
Thank you. Anything else? Member Nauchin.
I move to adjourn.
That's what I've been looking for. Thank you. The record will reflect that we adjourned at 6:33. Thank you, everyone.